Hi, everybody. It's Nomalanga. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us. This is our weekly Q&A for homeschoolers who are either at the beginning of their journey or just still thinking about joining the homeschool community. I'm here today to answer your questions. Please do jump into the chat and let me know that you can hear me and that you can see me. Please just quickly pop into the chat. Let me know that you can see me and that you can hear me. Okay, I've got a messages coming in that you can see me and you can hear me. That's wonderful. Thank you. Welcome, Tracy. Welcome, Erica. Welcome, everybody. Kalisha, Phyllis. Thank you for confirming, Wanda, Sherry, everybody. We have Alicia. We have about an hour in which I will be here to answer your questions. I will do my best to answer the questions now. If there is something that you're asking and don't have the information right away, I will do my best to get back to you with it. Okay, now because it's a Q&A, we want to use the Q&A portion. Just jump in, ask a question. I will go ahead and answer your questions live, okay? Thank you for those of you that confirmed that you can see me and you can hear me. That's very helpful. Thank you so much. Okay. So please try not to ask your questions in the chat. Rather go to the question section and ask your question there. So far, everybody is saying they can hear me. Lisa from Boston, Massachusetts. Hi, Lisa. I actually also am usually in Boston, although now I'm overseas in Botswana, and actually have been locked down here for a while. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, so again, guys, this is a Q&A. I don't have, this is a Q&A. I don't have a prepared presentation, so I'm just working with your questions. Try your best to ask your questions at the beginning. Sometimes when there's a lot of people inside the Q&A, we don't get to all of the questions, okay? Okay, so our first question is from Lawrence, and he says, does the curriculum need to be taught every day? Okay, so our family, for those of you that are just only being introduced to me, our family started the homeschool transition around 2012, and we officially started homeschooling in 2013. At the time, we had a preschooler, and our daughter was just going into second grade. So she had been in school in kindergarten and first grade, and she started homeschooling in second grade. And then we had our son in preschool, and he was transitioning into kindergarten. I'm saying this to say that over the years, we've tried different things. So Lawrence wants to know, does the curriculum need to be taught every day? We've tried homeschooling 7 days a week. We've tried 5 days a week, 6 days a week, and sometimes even 4 days a week. The thing about homeschooling is that a lot of things that some people might not call school and might not call learning is actually still homeschool, because you begin to have a culture of learning. A good example is that our daughter, for example, used to take singing and piano lessons on Saturdays. We still counted those hours towards her homeschooling hours, because depending on what state you are in, they sometimes have a mandate for how many hours you have to be in school. So for us, that counted. We did a lot of so-called home economics, but sometimes that was us. That was them sorting their own laundry. Then I would wash it, and they would fold it and put it away. We counted that as home economics. Washing dishes, cleaning the kitchen, cleaning the house, all of that was homeschool hours, because that was home economics. When we went to the grocery store and they did all the calculations for me, and whether you should buy the big jar or 2 little jars, all of those things count, because your children are still learning. So one of the most important things that I can stress about homeschooling is that you are building a culture of learning all the time, everywhere, in every way. all your experiences, all your life experiences can all be turned into lessons. Again, that's not to say you don't have actual textbook, actual curriculum, actual lessons, and actual homeschool, quote unquote, school time, okay? It's not to say you don't have that, but I just want to emphasize that the learning goes beyond those hours. What we used to do, Lawrence, was our children had now, by the time we had been in homeschooling for at least a year, they had been trained that when you get up in the morning, you know, you wash up. We had a schedule for wash up means brush your teeth, you know, take a bath or take a shower, comb your hair, get dressed, make up your bed, pick up in your room. Then you go downstairs. Again, we had another chart, and it was, you know, on Monday, it's oatmeal. If it was oatmeal day, mommy prepared the oatmeal. If it was a day it was smoothies, mommy prepared the smoothies. If it was a day where you just grabbed a couple of pieces of fruit, they just did that on their own. Or if it was cereal, again, they could do that on their own. I'm saying all this to say you can decide for yourself how you run your homeschool. And then after they did, you know, their morning getting ready, a couple of chores, and then breakfast, then school would start. So school time was officially between, you know, it starts somewhere around 9 o'clock, sometimes as late as 10 o'clock, just depending on how distracted or how long they took to get ready. And then it would typically run for at least 3 or 4 hours, but they would be able to take a break. We'd have lunch and then go back to it. So does the curriculum need to be taught every day? I would say yes, but you should have at least one day where, you know, there's no school obligation, or even 2 days where there's no school obligation. And even if they're learning, it's not formally and they're officially not in the homeschool, quote unquote, school hours. Okay, I hope that's helpful. Sherry says, how do I start my homeschool process in New York? This is true for every single state in the United States. If you're interested in homeschooling, please contact your school district, the superintendent's office, and find out what they need from you to homeschool. Now, depending on what state you're in, that can range from a phone call to the school principal or to the superintendent's office to say, hello, I am Mrs. So-and-so at address such and such. Our child was supposed to be in the 4th grade or whatever grade, or and we've decided to homeschool this year, and you're done. Or we started homeschooling in the state of Massachusetts. It could be as elaborate as we want to homeschool, and then they send you a whole list of things that they want you to fulfill. For us, it went right down to what are your qualifications to be a homeschooler. Now, for me, lucky enough, one of my degrees is actually in teaching. So it was easy for me to document why I was qualified to teach my children. Then you have to come up with the subjects that you're going to teach. You have to come up with the curriculum. You have to write a formal letter. They really make you jump through the hoops in the state of Massachusetts. Okay, and there's also go to the Department of Education in your state and find out what the subjects are that are required for the grade that your child is going into. So again, the first thing you need to do is contact the superintendent's office before you start homeschooling to find out what the requirements are. And again, I don't know off the top of my head what New York requires. We've actually never homeschooled in New York. But I do know that New York is one of the states that's a little more stringent than others, okay? The other thing that I recommend, I'll put it here in the chat, is that you join the HSLDA. I really think the HSLDA ought to stop paying me by now, because I recommend them so much. But I actually have, guys, nothing to gain by you joining the HSLDA, okay? I just happen to think that they're a very useful service to have. So I'm just gonna, I think it's HSLDA. I say this almost every single time. It's hslda.org. If anybody else can verify that for me, please. I'm going to type it. Somebody says repeat that. I'm going to type it in the chat. hslda.org. The reason why I recommend them, or just Google HSLDA, okay? The reason why I recommend the HSLDA is because they were very helpful for us because, like I said, Massachusetts is one of the more stringent states. And, you know, from depending on district to district, you kind of sometimes run into difficult people that make it difficult for you to homeschool your own children. Okay, so we did run into a few bumps on the road, and the HSLDA lawyers came to our rescue very quickly. They write very stern letters. They make phone calls on your behalf to let the person know that you're dealing with, whether it's the superintendent or the administrative assistant or whoever it is, to let them know that as a homeschooler, you have rights. As a parent, you have rights. And the United States has laws that allow you to homeschool your children. And just because they don't like it or they don't understand it or don't agree with it, it does not mean that they can not approve your homeschool request. And yes, guys, in some states, it is a request to homeschool, okay? And they have to approve your request to homeschool. But at the end of the day, please remember, it is your right, okay? It's your right to homeschool your children if that's what you choose to do, okay? So that was how do I start my homeschool process. So Sherry was asking in New York. I'm just saying that's how you started in every state, okay? Charlene says, what type of homeschool curricula are best for high school students? That's a very, very broad question, Charlene. As a parent and as a homeschooler, by homeschool, I mean a homeschool parent, you do have to do your due diligence. You do have to look at different curriculums and choose one, okay? I can tell you that one of the things that has been helpful is joining a homeschool support group or a homeschool community. There are a lot of them on Facebook, and there are also a lot. I'm specifically Afrocentric, Black-centric, whatever you want to call it, African-centered, whatever it is. One of the reasons why we decided to homeschool was because we genuinely believe that Black children have a different experience in the American public school system than the general population. So that was one of the driving forces for us to homeschool. So when we started looking into homeschooling, we wanted to have an experience that reflects that our children are Black. I'm African born and raised, even though I've lived in the United States for the most part of my life. But I wanted my children to appreciate their own history and to appreciate not only African American history, but African history, and learn from an African-centered standpoint. Because in the United States, the school system was created for white kids. It was not created for us. And our children will typically struggle if we're not mindful of how things are structured for them, okay? So what type of homeschool curriculum should you pick? We actually in the beginning picked just a box set. It was very generic, but as a parent, you do have to find resources. And again, like I say, join some groups, join some communities. Google is your friend, okay? Find lessons that reflect who you are, your values, and by values, I mean cultural values, I mean religious values, and all moral values, whatever you want to put it, and infuse that into your homeschool. That's the benefit of having a homeschool, is that you teach based on your own values as a family, as a community, and as a culture, okay? So what type of homeschool curriculum for high school students? I also want to say that it's important that you mix it up, okay? If you can afford a tutor, or if you can join a co-op, do that, okay? If they can take some of the courses online, let them do that, or supplement with online. But I think it's important to try out different approaches. And the nice thing about the older kids is they typically have learned more about themselves and what they, the ways in which they like learning. So you can do what they want and still stick with, you know, the subjects that they need. And if you feel like they need testing, you can find out how to test them, how to take standardized tests, okay? Hanokia says, how do you manage a homeschool schedule if you work full-time outside the home? Okay, so Hanokia, here is, for me, this is, excuse me, pure speculation. From the time that we started homeschooling our children, at the time that we made the decision to do it, I was working full time. I was a college professor at the time. I had a lot of freedom. I had summers off. I only worked Monday to Thursday. And I think I worked from 6 a.m. most of the time until about 2, 3 p.m. So I had a lot of flexibility in my schedule. Having said that, it still required me to not be formally working a job outside of the home to adequately homeschool our small children. Now, having said that, we also had a homeschool blog. It was called theblackhomeschool.com. It was at theblackhomeschool.com. We shared many stories of single parents who were homeschooling, and they were also trying to make a living. And we shared 2-parent families where both the parents worked, okay? Stories from those parents. So I'm saying that to say it's possible to homeschool even though you work outside the home, but you're gonna need help. Just in the same way that even if your children are in school, if school comes out at 2:30 and you're working until 5 o'clock, what do you do between 2:30 and 5 o'clock? Is it an after-school program? Is it grandma and grandpa? Is it your auntie and uncle? Is it the neighbors? You need a community and you have to manage it. Having said that, homeschooling, intense homeschooling where it's guided by a parent who is the teacher, really only takes 2 or 3 hours a day. So if, let's say, you want to have your children in a homeschool environment and your schedule is in the later part of the day, you can homeschool in the morning, right? And then I'm not sure what the babysitting arrangement would be after that, but that's how you would manage it. Or you can, and then the other great thing about homeschoolers is they're very independent learners, okay? Not to say I recommend leaving your small children in the home by themselves, but homeschoolers can really, once you set up the homeschool environment, and like I said, I operated, especially in the beginning, with a lot of schedules, a lot of structure. Not structure like school, but order so that we could all be on the same page about what we're doing, right? We weren't strict about what time they got up in the morning, but they did have to get up in the morning and do certain things. It's get yourself ready, it's do a couple of chores, and sometimes the chores can just be make up your bed and pick up at your room so it's not a whole mess. And then go downstairs, eat something, and then start your schoolwork. The schoolwork was also structured, like, Monday is 3 subjects, Tuesday is another 3 subjects, or 4 subjects a day, whatever it is. If the total of subjects that they were doing was 7, it would be 4 subjects one day, 3 subjects another day. Or sometimes they'd be doing more subjects in one day, like 5 subjects in one day, and then Tuesday's an easier day where it's 2 subjects, and then we do a field trip, or we do something fun, like go to the beach, go to the park, go to a play, whatever it is. So again, you have a lot of flexibility and a lot of freedom in how you build the homeschool. The difference between a homeschool and actual school is that your homeschool has much more flexibility. You build the school around your life. Whereas with the school that's structured, you have to be there at 7 o'clock or whatever they say it is. And then your child has to be in there until they say the child can go. So if you're working, you're still forced to take the child there at that time. You're still forced to pick them up at that time. So it's very structured and rigid. Whereas with your homeschool, I'm not sure how people manage their lives outside when both parents have to work. I do know people have after school programs. I know you have neighbors. I know you have family members. So you have to still use those kinds of resources and just dedicate at least 2 hours a day. It's not ideal, but sometimes school may need to be in the afternoons or in the evenings, if that's when mom and dad, or just mom or just dad, isn't working. If you're working the first part of the day, then school can be the latter part of the day. But my point is, homeschooling is not something that has to be rigid. You build the homeschool around what works for you. As far as addressing if you work full-time outside the home, that's not the ideal situation. We always encourage within the homeschool community that if it's a 2-parent home, at least one of the parents isn't formally working. Now, We also have many people who can help you with ideas about how to build an income that doesn't require you to leave your home and be somewhere else. You can still work full-time, but work within the confines of your home. You can not work a full-time job and just work part-time, or not work a job at all and build income streams that don't require you to be anywhere except where you choose, based on how you make money. Okay, I hope that's helpful, Hanokia. Casey says, I'm new to the homeschool world. I want to make a smooth transition. What would you suggest to assist with this? I would recommend using a box set. There are homeschoolers who have the opinion that when you leave the public school system, you kind of decompress and almost like detox from the the school environment and just do something radically different. I do believe that it's easier on you, it's easier on your children if you kind of make the transition a little bit gentle. So you're not doing everything that they were doing in school, but there are some similarities, right? There's structure a little bit, and as you go along, you'll get more comfortable with letting go of that structured learning or the rigid way in which school works. So what we did when we first started homeschooling, and I highly recommend this, is just get a box set. We use the time for learning. I'm not saying that a time for learning is better than anybody else or that it's the best homeschool box set. It just happens to be the one that I researched and got a few samples, and that's the one that I liked at the time. But again, all I had was a kindergartner and a second grader. And then later on, we started supplementing with Kumon tutoring. We supplemented with Kumon textbooks. I mean, we did a range of things, but to answer the question more succinctly, what would I suggest to make it a smooth transition? Use a box set. A box set is like a curriculum, just comes readily made, and you just have to kind of guide your children through the curriculum. That's what makes it easier. And then actually have a bit of structure, get up, do school, and then have afternoon activity, and then, I believe chores are necessary. You have to help out around the house and be a responsible contributor to the family, no matter how young a child is, okay? What are some helpful tips in terms of consistency? This is Kalisha. She says, what are some helpful tips in terms of consistency? Like I said, I was the schedule mistress or the schedule master. Yeah, mistress is a better word. So I kind of made a schedule or a list or a roster for everything, right? And wrote instructions for everything. And I found that this made it easier for the children, so that they had something to reference, something to look at, to guide them through the day, okay? So again, I would not force them to get up at a specific day. Like, I think I used to have a window. Like if they got up before 7 a.m., that's too early, go back to bed. If 9 o'clock rolled around and they were still sleeping, then I would start to rustle them out of bed, because the day is going to get away from us. But, they had a time, in the morning to get up. And I've already said this throughout the call. They had chores that they were responsible for. I'm just grabbing my charger here. I had chores that they were responsible for, but only quick chores in the morning. And then they had their individual curriculums where we would, we'd have a roster of which subjects they're responsible for that day. And then when they finished their schoolwork, they had more chores, but then they had also, let's say, another list of, you can choose to do this. You can go and play outside. You can play on your computer for an hour. Sometimes it was 2 hours. There were activities that they could do that helped. So they kind of started to know that their day had a pattern, that they had some time where they could play free and nobody asked them to do anything. They had time where there was expectations to be with the family, whether it was doing chores or eating food at the table. They had time where they knew it was school time. It was time where maybe we go on a trip. We call them school trips, but really it was just fun outings. So that's how you build consistency. I would say make yourself a schedule, but please don't be a slave to the schedule, because then you know, when you kind of enslave yourself to a schedule, then it takes the fun out of it. I believe that homeschooling should be fun. It should be enjoyable. It should really help you as a family to bond, to understand each other, and to have harmony, consistency, and to just really be, I don't like the word building, but I'll use it anyway, to be building exceptional children, right? To be building them up into exceptional human beings. So those are the things that we did, and I do highly recommend them. Then again, have a schedule, but at the same time, don't be a slave to the schedule, okay? Have rosters, lists, anything that can keep you organized, and something that the children can refer to if you can't attend to them right away, or so that they don't ask you what to do all day, right? You know, once you have more than one or two, just more than one child, once you have 2, 3 or more children, it helps if you have some order, and they have expectations, clear expectations, so they can follow them without constantly needing your hands-on input all the time, right? Jem says, I'm new to this. I need all the info on where to start, what I need to start with. I'm from New York, but on the move, either Virginia or North Carolina. Okay, so I actually didn't mention this yet, but I should be mentioning it more often. I'm gonna pop into the chat again, guys, and type for you. Let's see, where was our chat? There's the chat, okay. It's the Black Homeschool Guide.com. Okay, so this is actually what I put together about maybe a year into our homeschooling journey. So what happened is when I was, it was my husband and I who were doing this homeschool journey, but he worked full time. So the hands-on homeschool parent was me. And what I experienced is that when I was looking for information and resources about how to homeschool at the time, there just really wasn't much. There was some very generic information from usually white families that were conservatives, and they didn't want their children in school because they had extremely conservative religious beliefs. And that's okay, I'm not judging that, but that wasn't our driving reason, right? So we had different reasons for homeschooling. We needed a different set of resources and a different perspective, and it was hard to find. So when I started to compile the information, I did a guide, and at the time I think it was 10 or 12 lectures, which answered, you know, from the state to state, how do you proceed? It addressed a lot of the questions that I had, and I had to work so hard to find the answers. So it readily has all the answers, and then it gives you the step-by-step process of how to get from the point where you're thinking, okay, I want to homeschool, but I don't know what to do, until you've built your homeschool, right? And then what we did after that is we started interviewing other homeschool parents and other homeschool families about how they were succeeding in the homeschool environment. So we started including those videos as well. And then for a few months now, I've been doing these Q&As, which brings up very valid questions that people have, and we've added those. So that is at theblackHomeschoolGuide.com. If you go and sign up today, I believe it's only $1 to sign up, and you can get through the lectures, through the first 10 lectures, I think it's 10, maybe it's 12, through the 10 lectures that give you the nuts and bolts or the beginning process of homeschooling. And then we'll keep adding to this. As long as you're enrolled in the Black Homeschool Guide course, you will have access to me, however you can get in access to me, whether it's by email, Facebook, on here, whatever. And I will answer your questions, but please make sure that you actually tell me I'm enrolled in your course, so that I can give you priority, because a lot of people ask me questions and ask for guidance, but I don't really owe them that guidance more than I owe it to the people who've actually signed up for the course. So it's $1 for the first month, okay? It's theblackHomeschoolGuide.com. That's one of the courses that we have at the Black Business School, okay? So I'm saying that in answer to, whose question was it? It was, Yeah, Jem says, I need all the info on where to start. That'll help you. Those states easier to homeschool, 11th, 8th, and kindergarten. In terms of ease of homeschooling, it's not about whether it's easy to homeschool, it's about the process to get approved for homeschooling, right? And the requirements that they have from you. I don't know off the top of my head. Like I said, please go to the HSLDA website. There is a place where they actually break down the states and what the requirements are for the state. I recommend actually joining the HSLDA because it will help you if you need help. And with some states, you really do need help. And by help, I mean legal help. It's not expensive, guys. When we joined all those years ago, it was only $10 a month for the whole family. It was literally nothing compared to the amount of help that they gave us. Try calling a lawyer, any lawyer, and just asking them for a phone consultation and how much that costs. Believe me, it's going to cost you in a year. You're probably paying $120 for that service. It's going to cost you more than that $120 just for a 30-minute consultation. So I have nothing to gain from you joining the HSLDA. But like I said, I highly recommend it, okay? And again, if you're new to homeschooling and you just really don't know where to start, go sign up for the Homeschool Guide course, okay? I'm the one who created it. It's a series of lectures, and then after that, we have videos with more information and resources, okay? So it's at theblackHomeschoolguide.com, theblackHomeschoolguide.com. I put it in the chat section over there, okay? I hope that's helpful, Jen. Okay, so Sherry says, I'm a new homeschool parent, a high schooler and a middle schooler. What would you suggest to transition them? Again, I recommend doing the Homeschool Guide course, okay? And then, like I said, especially the higher you go in grade levels, I do recommend a box set. I can't recommend one box set over another. I do say, though, that you should, because like I said, when we started, our children were very small. Now we have our daughters transitioning from 7th to 8th grade, our oldest, and then our son is in 5th grade, and then we did have another baby. He's 4 years old, so he's basically a preschooler. So, you know, we have multiple levels here. And like I said, I think that a box set really helps when you're transitioning from school to homeschool because it gives you kind of like a bit of a structure until you're more comfortable as a parent who now is the teacher. Actually, I try to refrain from calling us teachers, right? We're just guiding our children through the process of learning, right, as their guide. And then also for the child or for the student, a box set gives them a bit of structure until they become more comfortable with you creating the curriculum or buying a curriculum or other things, okay? I'm seeing some chats here. Let me just see what we're chatting about, okay. Okay, it's just Jem saying thank you after I answered her question. And somebody says hello from Tyler, Texas. Okay, if you're just joining us, guys, please pop into the Q&A section, ask your question. We're about 35 minutes in, so we have another 30 minutes or so that I'll be here to answer your questions. My name is Nomalanga, for those of you that missed it in the beginning. We've been on this homeschool journey since 2012. I am an educator, funny enough, by profession, although it's now informally, obviously. So I'm happy to help you. The course that I have, one of the courses that I have is at the Black Business School. It's theblackHomeschoolguide.com. That's the link. I put it in the chat. And actually also, it is relevant to tell you all that homeschooling and building income streams from home really do go together. So I have another course at the Black Business School. The link is iDon'tWantABoss.com. iDon'tWantABoss.com. And that actually talked about my journey and actually Dr. Boyce Watkins' journey. When we first connected as professionals, he was a professor at Syracuse University, I believe. I think he was, but he was a professor somewhere in upstate New York. And I was a professor at a local college in Boston, Massachusetts. And we actually both had the idea to transition from, you know, teaching at a formal institution to doing it independently. And he was very helpful to me, but we documented our journey and shared the process, and then also shared some tools, tips, and resources. So that, I'll put that here too, okay? It's, I don't want a boss.com. Okay, check that out as well. It's very helpful, and like I said, you'll often find that a lot of homeschoolers, at least one of the parent doesn't work formally. But at the same time, just because you're doing a great thing and you're educating your children yourself and you're doing this wonderful thing for your children, it doesn't mean you don't need to build income, right? Your need for actual material things doesn't go away. So I highly recommend learning how to build income streams away from the workplace or in a more flexible way that doesn't require you to leave every day to go to a building and then spend the whole day at the building and then come back home. Okay, I hope that makes sense to you guys. Okay, so let's go back to our Q&A section here. Oh, I did not mean to do that. Okay, back, okay. Okay, so our next question is from Sarita. She says, what suggestions would you give for curriculum and what resources would you recommend? Okay, so let's take it back to basics, okay? I share this every single week and I'll share it again today. Okay, you need 3 things for any homeschool process. You need 3 things. You need the 3 R's. It's reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's arithmetic, okay, it's A, but for the sake of being able to remember it, it's reading, writing, and arithmetic. Okay, so when you can cover those 3 things, you've covered the foundation for learning. Okay, we actually included a 4th R, which was reasoning, which actually is logic and critical thinking. Okay, so what I did with every school year was I started with those 4. Okay, I wanted to find textbooks and resources to help the children with their writing, with their reading, and with their math. That's arithmetic, right? And then I also found textbooks that was specifically designed to encourage logic and critical thinking. Once you have those 4 subjects, you have the fundamentals, okay? Now, the next thing is, at the Department of Education, they're actually by grade, required subjects, right? So sometimes they don't actually require you to take both science and geography. They'll say pick one. Either you have to, it's mandatory to take one or the other, right? Then make sure that you're also fulfilling the required subjects. And once you have your subjects, then the next step is find the tools, resources, and texts that go along with those subjects, right? So the easiest thing, of course, is to just find a textbook, right, for to teach reading, to teach writing, to teach arithmetic. Then let's say you can find an online program to supplement or substitute one of those things. Again, it depends on you, what you can find, what you can afford, and it also depends on the learner, on your child, the learner. What do they like more? And you'll soon know. Don't be afraid to try different things and then see what works and then do what works, and let what doesn't work fall away, okay? And then also don't be shy to create exercises and find little exercises and things that you can use to reinforce learning in different subjects. Again, please always connect yourself to a homeschooling community. One of the things that I love about the homeschool community is we love sharing. There are people who are actual educators of small children. I wasn't. I was trained to teach at the college level. So creating little assignments and exercises and things for little kids was not my comfort space. So I needed other people to do that for me. I was willing to buy it. I was willing to beg for it. I was willing to Google for it, whatever it is. So that should get you started, Sarita, okay? If you can cover the fundamentals and then cover the subjects that are required, the most comfortable thing is to just buy a textbook that correlates with, like, buy a math textbook and then guide your child through the textbook, right? You can also find other exercises or create other exercises as you become more comfortable with becoming a teacher or being a parent that's guiding their child through the learning process, okay? So the resources that I would recommend are, you can, if the child is very small, for instance, you can print out little things for them to draw, to trace. You can print, you can go online and just type in phonics if they're learning to read, and there's YouTube videos. All of this is free, and have them do that for 15 minutes a day. Please don't ever feel that your children have to be in school like school, where they're in there from 7 o'clock until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. No, no. The smaller they are, the less time that they have to spend in formal school. And please also understand that the more things that you expose your children to, especially when they're smaller, and again, it applies even as they grow older. Children are sponges. They're always learning. They learn through play. They learn through interaction. They learn through your examples. They learn through what you model for them. A movie can be a homeschool lesson, okay? We used to extract our moral lessons from sometimes television. We could watch a show together, watch the behavior of those children, and my children would go ahead based on what we taught them and what we believed. Are these children acting according to what we believe, or are they acting differently? How are they acting differently? What would you correct? Even the characters in the story, for the sake of comprehension, could they follow the story? Could they write you an essay based on what they watched? Could they make a presentation about the lessons that they pulled from that movie or from that show? So use anything and everything. Whatever you enjoy, incorporate that. Whatever your children enjoy, incorporate that in your school. When you have family visits, I remember we had family members that homeschooled when I first got married, which was a long time ago. I remember I was this fascinating person because my husband's family was American and I was a foreigner. Even though I'd been living in the United States for a long time and for most of my life, I was still somebody from somewhere else. So they found that very interesting. And they had 5 children. They did a whole project on my country of Botswana, and I was the consultant on the project. They could ask me all kinds of questions. They did their own research about different things about Botswana. I ended up learning from them because they were gathering so much information. They wanted me to help them learn a little bit of the language. So that's just tapping into family. It could just be that you have a family member that's a teacher, that's a lawyer, that's a vet, that's a nurse, whatever it is. Use anything and everything in your environment because, like I said at the beginning of the video, guys, when you become homeschoolers, what you're doing is you're building a culture of learning in everything, in every way, and from everyone. You're building that culture into your children, and it carries them a long way. Our children in 2018 tried quote unquote real school for our first son, our older son. It was the first time he'd ever been in school. But our daughter, like I had mentioned before, had been in school in kindergarten and then also in first grade. But then she hadn't been in school until much later in life. And when they tried actual school, I had the teachers call me in. And they, they were fascinated. They said, what is this homeschool thing? Your children, they learn so much differently from other children who've been in school all their lives. They have a hunger for learning. They're always ahead. They're always exploring further than what we say. They have a curiosity and a natural love for learning. And they were trying to get me to explain how I do that. Well, it's not me. It's just the homeschool environment. You build a culture of a love for learning and enjoying learning. And it doesn't have to have that punishing thing, first of all, of having to get up way early in the morning to catch the bus or to be dropped off and then sit down, be quiet, and try not to be distracted by the 30 or 25 other children in the class. It's just a different world. And I'm saying all that to say, Sarita, that don't be rigid about what tools and resources you use for your children to learn, especially when they're smaller, because they can learn from anything and everything, okay? But to be more specific, please do join a homeschool community online, like a homeschool Facebook group. Again, like I said, I prefer mine to be Afrocentric, Black-centric, whatever you want to call it. And then tap into that environment, ask for what tools they're using. If you have a third grader, pop in and say, please, can I please hear from the parents who have third graders? And they will say, yes, my child's a third grader. Here's what we're using. They'll tell you the specific book their children are reading. They'll tell you the specific assignments they have that week or for that school year, and so on and so on, okay? I hope that's helpful. Casey says, is it possible to participate with HS community? I'm going to assume HS is homeschool rather than high school before your child is old enough to implement a full curriculum. Yes, you can join a homeschool group. You can homeschool supplementally. Like I said, we transitioned. So we were not full-time homeschoolers in 2012, but I did start adding subjects after school and on the weekends that they didn't have in school, and just taught them different things. Like, for example, our children from a very young age started learning coding. The programming language was called Scratch, which is the most basic one that little children can kind of learn. So you can add subjects and get into the homeschool practice while they're still enrolled in school. You can homeschool throughout the summer and see how it goes. Although in the summer, I would recommend making it less extensive, right? So if under normal circumstances, you would spend 3-4 hours in homeschool. In the summer, I'd only say maybe an hour at the beginning of the day, maybe another hour later in the day, or just 1.5 hours during the day, then have fun and enjoy the warm weather. So the short answer is yes, Casey, okay? Sherry says, when planning college, for how difficult is it to create a transcript for a high school student? Is there a service that will assist? Okay, so our children haven't gotten there, but from our homeschool community, I can tell you this. Yes, you can find assistance. The second part of the question is, how do you create a transcript? So in the state of Massachusetts, we're required to document, okay, at the beginning of the school year and at the end of the school year, what subjects the children are learning. Are required to take, to assess the learning in some way. A standardized test is even sometimes an option for you if that's what you choose, okay? So the child's learning should have been documented. Please, parents, don't drop the ball on this. I actually have been remiss in that I don't mention it enough, okay? Please document what you're doing. Document the school process, okay? If it's a little kid who does drawing, get a big old folder and a 3-hole punch and punch it and just put them in there so that you can actually see. The nice thing also is that you can see the progress, right? Label it accordingly. And they could have a binder or a folder for different subjects, but document and keep the learning process or record of the learning process. The excellent thing about that is if you ever get bothered by the school system, social workers, or anybody who tries to accuse you of just not putting your children in school, you have documentation of the fact that your children are actively learning at home, okay? So I hope that's helpful, Sherry. And again, guys, don't be shy. Go to the high school and ask them how they are preparing the children in school for college. You're still a taxpayer in that school district. And actually you're entitled to most, if not all, the school's resources, the school's help, the school's actual, what do I call, the extracurricular activities or whatever else that school offers. Your children are technically entitled to those things, even if they're not formally enrolled in the school, because they are homeschoolers, but they're in that school district. So cultivate a friendly relationship with your superintendent and with the school principal of the school that your child would have been at had they been in the school, okay? The same thing happens with if your child has learning challenges. Don't be afraid to use the resources in that school or in the school district because, again, technically your child is entitled to those. If you need clarification about that, contact the HSLDA. I've mentioned it more than once. And I put it in the chat, hslda.org. They can help you by answering questions in terms of what your legal rights are as a parent in a school district, even if your child is not enrolled in the school, officially enrolled in the public school, okay? Jem says you already answered the question that others asked. Thank you. Okay, that's great. Linda says, can you do your own private homeschooling without being connected to the school system, registering with your state education system? Okay, so once you once you decide to homeschool, you're not connected to the school system, okay? And they can't force you to be connected. But in terms of registering with your state, that depends on the laws of that state. So like I said in the beginning, that different states have different regulations. It could be as easy as just calling them and telling them to leave you alone because you're homeschooling, or it could be a state like Massachusetts, where we started homeschooling, where they will give you a whole list of things that you need to do before they can approve your family or your children for homeschooling, okay? You do your own private homeschooling, and as a general rule, once you fulfilled the requirements for that state, they have to leave you alone as long as you're fulfilling the requirements. And again, the requirements are you have to ask for approval before the school year starts. You have to give the middle of the school year, you have to give them some kind of reports and assessments, and halfway through, how you're doing, and then at the end you have to do it again, and then you do it all over again for the next school year, right? But in terms of the school system and the homeschool being connected, they're completely different things. Once you say you're homeschooling, you're not part of the school system, except for the fact that you have to kind of reassure them that you're actually not just going to take your child out of school and then sit at home and they're not learning, right? That's really what it is. I find it very intrusive in some of these states, but it is for the child's protection, okay? For me, it's hard to imagine that a parent wouldn't want their child to get an education, right? Whether it's in the school system or at home, right? But unfortunately, there's a very, very small number of people who just can't be bothered, and I think that's who that is for, right? Melissa says, is there a difference between the Montessori approach of homeschooling and traditional curricular homeschooling? I can't speak for or to the Montessori approach versus traditional curriculum, and there is no traditional curriculum for homeschooling. There's so many different curriculums that you can purchase. Some are great, and some are just god-awful. That's why I say it's very important to be connected to a homeschool community where you can have recommendations from people who actually have experience with if you're buying a specific curriculum. Have parents who say, this was what was great about it, this is what I found challenging about it, this is what I didn't like about it, and get different opinions before you make a final decision. Like I said, we used a box set, and I remember at the time it was because it was recommended by a couple of families. We used that box set, and then after the first year, I felt more comfortable just creating our curriculum each year after year after year. I don't know if it's because I already had a teaching background, but you don't have to have a teaching background to feel comfortable creating your own curriculum. Believe me, please just to some degree ignore the fact that I have a teaching background, because so many homeschool parents that I know, some of them only have a high school education, and their children do exceptionally well in high school, in elementary, high school, all the way into college. So a parent's actual education and knowledge or ability should never be a hindrance to the child, because like I said, we're not actually teachers. We are parents who really care about our children's education, and we're guiding them through the process of we're guiding them through the process of their learning, okay? I see some people raising their hands. Please just pop into the Q&A and ask your question. We only have about 5 minutes left and a lot of questions, a lot more questions. So I'm sorry if I can't I'm gonna try and get through the ones that are here now. We typically only have about an hour 15 minutes every week, which is what I've committed to. But please feel free to go to, I'm gonna put it again in the chat here, okay? It's the Black Home School Guide. Just check that I spelled it right. Okay, it's theblackHomeschoolGuide.com. I can almost guarantee that if you have a question here today, if you go through the lectures that I did, you go through some of the interviews, and then you go through the past Q&As that I've done, your question is going to be answered. Okay, so go in there. It's only $1 for the first month. Okay, and you may be able to get through the lectures right in you know, within a day, right, or within a couple of days, or within a week, depending on how quickly you go through it, and decide for yourself if you find the information valuable enough to continue. Okay, I personally think it is, because like I said, I put it together, and I put it together for other homeschoolers, because when I wanted to homeschool, I had a hard time finding that information. It took me a long time, so I kind of just pull that information into one place. So I'm saying this because I have 20 questions pending and 2 minutes left. I'll go for another 5-10 minutes so I can answer as many questions as I can. But I'm saying all that to say, guys, if you go into our past Q&As, which one of our team members has been loading them every week, every time I do a Q&A. So even this one, if you came in and you didn't get all the way through it because you came in late or because you had to leave or whatever it is, it's being recorded and it will be loaded at the Homeschool Guide course. Okay, so it's theblackHomeschoolGuide.com. Okay, I just popped it into the chat there. Okay, let me see. Andre says, so we can do homeschooling anytime throughout the day, not just only in the AM. Is there a set time day that everything has to be turned in? Look at it this way, Andre. The homeschool, okay? Now, I'm saying this partly to be funny, but at the homeschool, okay, your house is the school. You're the principal, you're the teacher, you're the janitor, you're the guidance counselor, you're the everything, okay? You decide when it starts. You're even the superintendent, right? You decide when it starts, you decide when it stops, you decide when it's closed, you decide when it's a snow day. So you're not handing anything anywhere, okay? If you decide, we've had days where we decided we were tired from the day before and we slept the whole morning and played the whole morning, went and caught a movie, and then did a bit of school in the evening or no school that day, okay? Now, obviously, you can't do that every day, but I'm just saying that to illustrate that it's your school. Run it how it works for you and your family, okay? So there's no set time to start or stop or continue. There are no set days. And like I said in the beginning, there's a time we homeschool 7 days a week, 6 days a week, 5 days a week, 4 days a week. I've known homeschoolers who would homeschool 6 weeks on, 3 weeks off, or 6 weeks on, 6 weeks off, 6 weeks on, 6 weeks off, throughout the whole school year. I've known homeschoolers that will homeschool kind of like how the school year works, from maybe September all the way into May, June, and then take the summer off. In later years, I didn't want to take the summer off because I find that when you take too long a period or a break away from learning, they can lose some of their learning. So you need to keep doing things that refresh and keep them current in their learning. What we started to do was in the summer, we would just kind of relax a bit, right? So let's say during the school year, homeschooling was 5 days a week. We would do homeschooling like 2 or 3 days a week. Or let's say we were in school for 4 hours or 3 hours a day, doing 3-4 subjects a day or 5 subjects a day. In the summer, you do 1 or 2 subjects a day and maybe do it every other day. You just kind of play around with it and do what works for you. We also traveled internationally. So sometimes when we were abroad, it was hard to keep up the homeschooling because there was just too many distractions. Sometimes we weren't within the comfort of our own house and our own routine, so we had to relax a little bit. And instead of just doing the formal school, we visited museums, we visited libraries, visited family. It really is all about what you want to do and what works for you. The most important thing, again, guys, like I said, is just please build a culture of learning, right? Cultivate in your children a love for learning, a curiosity, and help them recognize that learning is possible anywhere, from everyone and from everything. And be creative, right? I used to just do impromptu lessons. If the kids said they wanted to go see a movie, the condition would be that there's an assignment tied to the movie, right? So like I said, depending on what grade level they're at, if a child is a first grader, they're not going to write you a 10-page essay on, on critiquing and analyzing the movie or the show or the documentary or whatever it is. But they can write you a one-pager, or they can make you a YouTube video explaining what they learned. This again demonstrates comprehension. Or sometimes you can tie it to something else, to another subject. What did they notice based on the geography or their science lesson or whatever it is? So just be creative, be open to your children learning anywhere and anyhow, and enjoy the process, and try to make sure that they also enjoy the process, okay? Andre says, what is your weekly schedule with your kids? I think I just kind of answered that. We've never had just one rigid schedule. We've changed it up based on what was working. I mean, like I said, we have a 4-year-old. I had a baby, an extra baby, right? We had 2 children, and then we had an extra baby later in life. And that totally changed our environment. So we had to keep trying different schedules based on what the baby needed. Soon the baby at 6 months joined our homeschool. We started teaching him sign language. Sometimes part of homeschooling was just play, and the older kids, the older child would teach the next older one and the next older one. Just have fun with it, and please understand that you can split your school into 2 forms. The formal learning, where you have textbooks or an online school, an online curriculum, and then also other activities and other curriculum that's more loosely based in play, experiences, family time, travel, but you're still incorporating it into the formal learning somehow, okay? I hope that's helpful, Andre. Melissa says, does homeschooling for middle school work the same as for high school students? It works the same all the way from elementary to high school, okay? It's just that the difference is basically the expectations evolve as the child evolves. The assignments get harder, the subjects increase, and the amount of time you spend in school increases. And obviously, if they're getting tested, the tests are according to the level that they're at, okay? Andre says, is there a difference from online school, homeschooling, and remote learning through the school? Absolutely. Homeschooling is independent, okay? You don't answer to the school. They don't ask you what you did that day. They don't give you the assignments. You're all on your own. And by your own, I mean the school isn't obligated to give you anything, and you're not obligated to give them anything. But that's why it's important to build a homeschool, to join a homeschool community, to join a co-op, so that you're not technically on your own. Because let's face it, guys, we're not teachers, right? So sometimes it can feel like, oh my God, I don't know what to do and I don't know what I'm doing, right? But yes, online school is not homeschool, okay? Although you can supplement homeschool with online programs, it in of itself, online school is not homeschool. It just happens at home, right? It's school that you're doing from home. Remote learning through a school is not homeschool, okay? It's remote learning through a school because you're still enrolled in that school. Homeschool means the person who creates, chooses the curriculum is the mom and dad and the children, okay? Not attached to anybody else. And then you choose if you want to choose a specific curriculum or just for one subject, a program. We used to enjoy a lot of math programs because it's like you kind of answer multiple choice and then it corrects them right there. Then it would recreate other assignments that make you repetition. Then it tests you, and then you have to get above a certain level to go on to the next level or to go on to the next concept, okay? So that was homeschool supplemented with online activities, but it was homeschool, okay? So I hope that's helpful. The box set that I used, Charlene said, what is the box set that you referred to? We use the time for learning, but I'm not saying you should use a time for learning. Just go to Google and say, you know, homeschool box sets, and there's lots of them. Read the reviews, join a homeschool community, and get a consensus, because like I said, we were using a time for learning when our children were very small, and I can't say that it's recommended for high school or it's recommended for middle school, okay? And by the time that our children got higher grades, I was now comfortable with creating their curriculum, okay? L'Oreal says, hello, I just started homeschooling my high schoolers and I wanted to know, is there curriculum for high schoolers? Yes, the short answer is yes, there is. There isn't just one. You do have to do your due diligence and kind of filter through the good ones, the bad ones. Guys, really, I can't recommend it enough. Join a homeschool community, whether it's virtually online on Facebook, or you find out through, there used to be this thing called meetups. Some meetups were actually homeschoolers that did meetups. So they would do sports leagues, extracurricular activities, or just sometimes family time, or help each other with different subjects and form co-ops. So if you build or join a community is what I'm saying, so that you're not trying to do it on your own, because you can do it, but it becomes very hard, okay? But I also recommend that you go and look at the guide that I made, okay? It's theblackHomeschoolGuide.com, theblackHomeschoolGuide.com. I'm gonna type it one more time before we go into the chat, okay? What did I do? I want to chat. There we go, okay. So it's the Black Homeschool Guide.com, theblackHomeschoolGuide.com. Okay, go in there, guys, and that will give you basically the first steps that you need to take. So you kind of get rid of that nervous energy of, I don't know what to do, I don't know if I'm doing it right, I don't want to make a mistake, I don't want to screw up, I don't want to ruin it for my children, okay? That should calm you down because it gives you the steps, okay? Again, it's theblackHomeschoolGuide.com, okay? So I hope that'll help you, L'Oreal, okay? L'Oreal, sorry. Dahlia says, hi, I have a 5-year-old who have somewhat homeschool. I started him this school year in virtual school, public school. Can I just clarify, that's not homeschooling? If you're connected to a school and it's a virtual school, that's what it is. It's public school virtually. It's not homeschooling, okay? But he hates it. So I'm thinking of transitioning back to homeschooling. I don't know what curriculum to use. Any guide advice will help. Forgive me if this has already been asked. It's okay, Dahlia. Like I said, if you go to the blackhomeschoolguide.com, every single time that we do a Q&A, one of our team members will add it to the list of Q&As at the bottom of the course, okay? So go to the blackhomeschoolguide.com and listen through the whole thing today. And yes, your question has been answered, but the short answer is we're going to go back to the beginning, where first of all, for a 5-year-old, please don't try and make 5-year-olds sit down and do a formal curriculum. They just need the basic fundamentals: reading, writing, and arithmetic, and how you do that is entirely up to you. 5-year-olds are kindergarten and they have kindergarten textbooks. Let them do maybe 15 minutes of exercises and activities in the text and leave it alone. I'm talking about math. Then maybe another 15 minutes with reading, and then maybe another 15 minutes with writing, okay? And reading also, it counts if you read to your child. That counts as reading, okay? Until they're old enough to actually read a whole book by themselves, you reading to your child counts as homeschooling reading, okay? And actually, if you explore the subjects that I can't say enough about my boys or our boys. They've been in a Sonic. If you're a parent of young boys, you probably know who Sonic is. So I try to find everything Sonic to encourage them to draw Sonic, color Sonic, write about Sonic, read about Sonic, everything Sonic, activities around Sonic. And I'm saying all that to say I try to follow their interests in order for them to gain an interest in the subject that we're trying to introduce, okay? I hope that's helpful, Dahlia. So Jem says, Jem, again, is Dr. Watkins Black Millionaires or tomorrow other courses of arithmetic? I want my family to know time freedom. I actually heavily recommend you to go to the to the Black Business School. And there are lots of courses around math and finances. I'm going to see, I know there was also a platform that offered Black history. I'm going to find out from our team members, and I will add it to our resource list that's at the Black Homeschool Guide course. Okay. Looks like my computer's running out of battery here. Okay. Okay. It seems to slow down when I start. Okay, there we go. Okay, so yeah, the short answer is to Jem's question is the courses that are offered for children at the Black Business School, are those useful to supplement your homeschool curriculum? Absolutely. Normal school, in terms of public school, usually doesn't incorporate finance until much later, and in my opinion, and a lot of educators' opinion, too late. Okay, so again, once you have the fundamentals of reading, writing, and arithmetic, and you pick the subjects that the state mandates for the grade level that you're at, you can then add subjects that you want your children to learn. And a lot of those are at the Black Business School. I hope that's helpful. Melissa asked a great question. What methods have you used to track progress and learning levels? I kind of mentioned this earlier. I said that you need at least, the smaller they are, you could just have one big binder and you just kind of put it in there. How you assess your children is entirely up to you. If you want to show that they can do comprehension, like I said, have them read a book and then write an essay or summarize what they read. Have them watch a show, a documentary, and that's comprehension. You might want to use more formal tools like an online program for math. You can have them, the state or the school district can offer you standardized tests that are pre-made, and you just take the test and you let them test you. Textbooks, when you choose textbooks, they're textbooks that every concept that they introduce, there's a little test at the end of the concept, or every chapter, at the end of the chapter, there's a test at the end. And those are the things that you need to save, to document progressive learning, okay? So there are many ways. You just have to pick one and keep it, you know, in a folder or in a binder so that you can track their progress, okay? And what you'll find also, Melissa, is that children jump up and down grade levels for different subjects. I always use one of our sons as an example. He's a math guy through and through, but he's not a great reader and writer, or he wasn't in the beginning. So when he was by the time he was in second grade, he was still kindergarten, first grade reading and writing, but he was in third and fourth grade level math. And he was already coding and learning programming languages and highly advanced in technology and science. So you're going to be up and down and all over the place. So you can test them or assess them in terms of what concepts they've grasped, but it does get tricky when you start trying to narrow them down to a specific grade level. It becomes difficult. Okay, I hope that's helpful. Okay, guys, we still have about 20 questions left, even after I've tried my best to get through the questions. Please, like I said, I'm going to say it one more time. I'm going to say it just one more time. If you go to theblackhomeschoolguide.com, theblackhomeschoolguide.com, I have, let me just type it without being distracted. The Black Homeschool Guide. Okay. I have a series of lectures that's going to help you through the first part of starting your homeschool and getting it set up, all the information that you need to know. Then we have some interviews about experiences of parents in the homeschool environment. And then we have all of these Q&As for the past few months that I've been doing. And these are questions obviously from people like you who want to get homeschool, started, or have just started and still have a lot of questions and nervousness and whatever it is. So again, guys, it's only $1 for the first month. Jump in, get as much as you want, get a grasp on it. And if it's valuable for you, continue, okay? I don't recommend you paying for something that you don't find value in. However, for me, I wish somebody had introduced that guide to me when I first started homeschooling, okay? So it's at theblackhomeschoolguide.com, okay? For those of you that joined late, don't worry. All of our Q&A sessions are recorded. You can go and look at it from the beginning. You can go and watch it from the beginning. If you reach out to me, whether it's on Facebook, I'm on Facebook a lot. It's Noma. Let me put my name since it says that I'm just Fly Nubian Queen. Okay, I'm gonna put my Noma Mhlauli. Mhlauli-Moses, okay? If you're gonna look for me on Facebook, I'm there as Nomalanga Mhlauli. Reach out to me, please. Please let me know if you're enrolled in the course so that I can give your questions priority. A lot of people reach out to me and I can't always get to everybody, but certainly if you're enrolled in the course, I will get to you within a 24-hour time period and answer your questions, okay? I hope this has been helpful to you guys. If you didn't get your questions answered, again, I encourage you to go back into the course and watch some of the Q&As, and I can almost guarantee your question will be answered. If it's not and you're enrolled in the course, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm always happy to help. Just make sure that you tell me that you're enrolled in the homeschool course, okay? Thank you guys, I'll see you next week.